Welcome to Empowering Relationships. And so we're going to be talking tonight and tomorrow about relationships. You know, it's always interesting whenever we have a seminar because people come from different places. And I notice again tonight we've got people of different ages and different situations in life, different places in life. And you know, there's one thing I noticed that's consistent about these seminars, and that is people probably have come for some reason totally other than they thought they came for. What I mean by that is I suspect that tonight and tomorrow things will happen in your life that may be totally different than what you thought were going to happen. What I mean by that is people have come for all different kinds of reasons. Some people, you've been waiting for this seminar for several weeks with great anticipation. Other people just heard about it yesterday or the day before, decided to come. Other people, you don't know why you're here. Somebody said come, so you came. And then there's always people that were drug here. It's like, you know, your mother-in-law paid for the thing, or, you know, somebody said you're going to this, and so here you are. And many times people don't really even want to be here. But one thing that I've found is absolutely consistent, and that is you probably have an appointment with God over the next couple days, and He will probably do some things that were unexpected that you didn't know. And that's always a good thing. So we're always excited about that, just to see what's going to happen. Well, as I mentioned, we're going to be talking about relationships, and I'm going to be presenting it from my perspective, which is the only perspective from which I can present it. And the reason I say that up front is I know we have people here from all kinds of different walks of life, maybe many different types of worldviews, many different ways of thinking, and so that's okay. We're happy for everybody to be here from whatever perspective you might be coming from. I'm going to be sharing this weekend from a biblical Christian perspective because that's the way I see life. But if you see life totally differently or you have a different worldview, I just want to let you know that's okay. You just interpret what I'm saying into the way you see life. And that'll be fine. If that's okay with you, that's okay with me. And that way we can be in agreement with each other and just agree to disagree on the things that we don't see the same. Is that all right? Okay. We call this an Ancient Paths seminar. Some people think, well, what is that? Why is it an Ancient Paths seminar? And now that comes from a scripture in Jeremiah chapter 6, verse 16. That scripture says, "Stand by the ways and see and ask for the ancient paths where the good way is, and walk in it, and you shall find rest for your souls." The thing that attracted me to that scripture years ago is that word ancient really got me. I thought, ancient paths, what does that mean? I mean, that sounds interesting, intriguing. I mean, that sounds like something I'd like to find out about. So what are ancient paths? So the first thing I did, I just looked the word up, you know, in the dictionary, and it was originally written in Hebrew. So I looked it up, find out, well, what is the Hebrew meaning of ancient? And I found it was the word olam, O-L-A-M. And I found that word doesn't mean just old or old-fashioned. It literally means things like this: universal, eternal, out of eternity, perpetual, from before time, things like that. And I thought, now that is interesting. Ways that are from before time, ways that are eternal, what would that be? And as I began thinking about that, the more I understood that, the more I began to get what that's talking about is basically just universal truths of life. How many know that life on planet Earth is just set up with certain things that work the same for everybody? I mean, in the physical realm, for example, gravity. It just works the same for everybody. It doesn't matter what you believe. It doesn't matter how old you are. It doesn't matter what color skin you have. Gravity just treats everybody exactly the same. And so there are principles of life that are like that. There are principles that govern relationships that are like that. And what we found and what we'll look at in relationships over this weekend is that there are certain things that when you discover them, when you walk in them, when you implement them, they will benefit you. They will empower that relationship. On the other hand, if you violate those things, you're going to disempower that relationship. You're going to damage that relationship. You're going to harm that relationship. Let me give you an example just in the physical realm, the realm of gravity, for example. Suppose somebody honestly really doesn't understand gravity. How many think that might cause that person a little bit of problem walking through life? I mean, Serious type of problem. Suppose we had a guy that came in here tonight with a broken leg, and maybe we prayed for him. Suppose that God supernaturally healed him, and a guy came in with a broken leg and went out with his leg healed. We'd all be excited, right? Because we saw something supernatural. We saw a miracle right before our eyes. We'd go, wow, that was incredible. But suppose then we discovered the reason that the guy had a broken leg is he honestly doesn't understand the principle of gravity. And as a result of that, he regularly steps off tall buildings and cliffs. Have we really helped the guy by getting his leg healed? See, we removed the pain from him, but how many know long term that guy's going to have some serious problems, like he might have to come another time with a broken back or a broken neck, or maybe we have to raise the guy from the dead if he really does not understand gravity. So that's a serious type of thing. So what I've discovered is that in our society, people are short-term thinkers. People are mainly looking in most aspects of life at remove my pain today. If I've got pain in a relationship, just make the pain go away. If I've got pain in my body, make the pain go away. You know, just alleviate the pain. How many know that's not always the best thing? Just like the guy with a broken leg, we can take his pain away, but if we don't get at the root of why that happened, we haven't really benefited him. So what I'm saying is in relationships, we've got to understand what causes damaged relationships. What causes people to wound each other? What causes people to disempower relationships, to damage relationships, to hurt other people, to get hurt themselves? How does that work? Because if we can understand some of the basic principles behind that and change how that functions, then it's just not a matter of removing somebody's pain in a marriage that's painful, or a relationship with parents and children that's painful, or with coworkers, or with a boss, or with an employee, or in whatever relationship we happen to be talking about. We don't want to just remove the pain. What we want to do is find out what are the principles that cause relationships to prosper and to be empowered, and what are the principles that cause relationships to be damaged and to not prosper, to be disempowered. When we look at that word relationship, we could be talking about many different relationships, but we're going to talk about 3 specific ones tonight and tomorrow. We're going to talk about your relationship with other people. We're going to talk some about your relationship with God, and we're going to talk some about your relationship with yourself. So primarily those 3 relationships is what we're going to be looking at. And we're going to talk about how can you empower relationships? How can you cause relationships to function in a way that empowers that relationship? What do I mean by empower? Let me just give you some definition of that word. What we're talking about there is to cause that to thrive, to prosper, to do well. Or to disempower means to cause to damage, harm, impede, or hinder from prospering. And so we're going to look at what can we do to cause our relationships with other people, we'll start with, to prosper, to be empowered, to thrive, and to do well. What I began to discover, and we'll talk about this a lot more extensively after the break in the next session, but what I've discovered is that ultimately we are sending messages to one another all the time, and they're not necessarily verbal. How many know we're all communicating right now? But I'm the only one talking. But we're sending messages back and forth to each other. Some people are nodding their head, and you know that's a way of communicating. Giving me eye contact, that's a way of communicating. So we're sending messages to one another right now, even though I'm the only one communicating, or only one talking verbally. We're still communicating. Ultimately, there are 2 messages that we can send to other people. You can send people a message that says, you're very, very valuable. You're worth spending time with. Your opinions count. Your feelings count. Who you are counts in my sight. Or we could send people another message, you're worthless. You mean nothing. I think your opinions are stupid. Your feelings don't count. You don't mean anything to me. We can send people either one of those messages. If you look ultimately at where those messages come from, one comes from God and one comes from Satan. God's message is you're very, very valuable, and Satan's message is you're worthless. You have no value. Now, in relationships, we can convey either message at any particular point in time. We can convey you're valuable or we can convey you're worthless to other people. One message will empower a relationship. The other message will disempower a relationship. The trick in it is many times we don't realize what message we're sending. We can be sending a message and not realize that we're sending that message. We can actually damage and harm and disempower a relationship and not know we've done it. Be totally baffled. What happened? Why is that person responding that way to me? Why is that customer treating me that way? Why is that son or daughter responding to me that way? Why is that friend or husband or wife relating to me in that way? Oftentimes what's happened is we've actually sent them a message and didn't realize that we were sending them that message. I remember one young woman was sharing this story with me. She said in her growing up years in high school, she desperately in her heart wanted to please her father. How many know most people growing up want to please their dad and mom? She wanted to please her dad. Now, her dad had grown up during the Depression years in the United States, and as a result of that, he didn't have much money. He had to quit school at an early age and go to work to try to help his family. So what do you think he wanted for all his children? He wanted for them to get a good education. He wanted for them to have opportunities that he didn't have available to him. So he wanted them to go to school, wanted them to go to college, wanted them to actually go to professional school and become doctors and lawyers and accountants and have opportunities available to them that he hadn't had. Well, fortunately, this daughter was smart. She got good grades. So she knew that one of the ways to please her dad was getting good grades. So she came home one semester in high school with a report card. And on the report card, she had all A's and 1 B. She'd worked pretty hard to get those grades, and so she came to her father with her heart wide open. What do you think she was hoping to hear from her dad? Yeah, approval. Well done. Good job. Man, you must have worked hard to get those grades. So the dad looks at the report card, and guess what he draws attention to? The B. What happened here? That's unacceptable. If you want to get into a good school, you're going to have to do better than that. I want to see that come up to an A next semester. What do you think happened in her heart? Man, she was devastated. I mean, she was expecting approval, and what she got was rejection. She took that report card up to her room, threw it across the room, and cried herself to sleep that night. Now, what the father didn't realize was, underlying the words that he spoke, how many know there was a value message being conveyed? And what was the value message? Not good enough, not valuable, not acceptable. And what did that do inside her? That wounds when somebody sends you that message. Did this father empower or disempower his relationship with his daughter? Disempowered it. Now here's the key. Did he know that at the time? What did he think he was doing? He thought he was motivating her to try harder. He thought he was motivating her to better academic performance. Well, she made a decision. Okay, I will work harder. I will get that A. So she dropped a sports activity, worked harder, and came home next semester straight A's. Handed a report card to her dad, heart wide open again. And you know what she thought? I got him this time. I mean, he's going to have to approve me. And what's he going to say? Straight A's? So guess what he says? Well, obviously the classes you took were too easy if you can just breeze through them like that with straight A's. What message does he send her? Rejection. Unacceptable. Not good enough. Not what I want. Wounded her again. You know, she made a different decision this time. She decided, I quit. I quit. If he isn't going to ever approve me and there's nothing I can do that's good enough, then I'm not going to try anymore. And her grades just went right downhill. No more A's, C's and D's. You know, when people get wounded, a lot of times they shut the door on the person who wounded them, but they go in search of love and acceptance somewhere else. That's what she did. She found a young man, a peer. He said he'd love her, but guess what? It cost her something. Not long after that, she was pregnant. She didn't want to tell her dad that, so she moved out of the house, moved in with her boyfriend, lived there for a while, but guess what? He found somebody that he liked better. So after a while, that relationship terminated. She didn't want to go back home. And to make a long story short, she went from relationship to relationship to relationship for many years until that changed. Until, eventually she realized what had happened, restored a relationship with her dad, came into a relationship with God. Her life began to change. Now, the point of what I'm saying is this. That father disempowered that relationship with his daughter, but didn't realize it, didn't know it, didn't understand it, didn't realize how it happened. Basic principle that's just like gravity. That'll work the same every time, but he didn't understand how that principle worked. So as a result of that, he was busy disempowering the relationship with his daughter, wounding her, and not knowing that it was happening. So a lot of what we'll talk about this weekend is blindness. Areas where people are blind. Not evil. In other words, the father wasn't intentionally trying to wound, trying to do damage, just didn't see what was happening. Does that make any sense? Okay, that can happen in many different relationships. Now, part of the time in this seminar, we're going to be in a group all together here like this. And then there's going to be another part where we're going to be broken up into small groups. And sometimes when people hear small groups, they get afraid. What are they going to do to us? They're going to make us do something, or they're going to, force us to do something we don't want to do, or small groups can be a little bit scary because you got to look at people instead of the back of someone's head, like you are now. And what I want to say is the purpose of the small groups is not to force you to do anything you don't want to do. The purpose of the small group is just to make an opportunity available to you to share whatever you want to share, to ask people to pray for you, whatever you want them to pray for you, but not to pressure you or force you or make you do something that you don't want to do. Does that make sense? Is that okay? So it's an opportunity that's available. And we have some people that we've trained to lead those small groups so as to keep it safe for people, so that people don't feel pressured or don't feel like somebody's trying to make them do something that they don't want to do. And so we'll be having our first small group in just a moment. So let me go ahead and call the seminar coordinator to come up and share with us how we're going to be breaking up into those small groups. And we're going to go ahead and have our first small group time right now.